Okay. In British Columbia, low-income people, working-class people who are non-native, and indigenous people are being abused by this government.
Yeah.
They're being abused by the cities whose bylaw officers torture them, who slash their tents and steal their belongings and make their lives criminal. They're being abused by the provincial government that denies them the basics of living, like health, housing, and enough money to live on. And what happens when we fight back against our abusers is that at first those abusers lash out and try to make us suffer. They try to make us fearful so that we won't stand up and fight back, so that they can maintain that abusive relationship. And in Maple Ridge, we're seeing exactly that happen. For years, low-income people in Maple Ridge have suffered special kinds of abuse because there are two powerful forces that strike down on people. One of them is the same austerity measures that we see everywhere, that we're denied housing, picked on by bylaw, denied enough income to live. But then the additional thing in Maple Ridge is that people are also faced by a force called vigilantes, like Maple Ridge vigilantes, which is basically an anti-poor hate group that it organizes itself on Facebook, and when the government does say they might build housing, they rally in the streets, they hold petitions shamelessly out on the highways, and they mobilize their forces to fight back against providing housing for the poor. Last year, when the government was going to buy the Quality Inn Hotel for low-income housing, they held a rally of 600 people in the parking lot of the Quality Inn calling for that housing to be shut down. Earlier this year, the two Liberal MLAs, played to that crowd and organized a hate rally in the biggest church in Maple Ridge, in the Baptist church. They filled it to standing room only and put microphones in the aisles for people to line up and denounce homeless people, to call for them to be driven out into the Fraser River. They called naloxone enabling people to continue using drugs because people would be better off dead than using drugs, according to these bigots.
Shame! Shame!
But 2 weeks ago in Maple Ridge, low-income people from the Rain City shelter, people who've been hiding out in the bushes all around town, and some people who used to be in tent cities and are now in social housing, got together and organized Anita Place Tent City. They launched that tent city as a place of resistance against that hate, as a survival place to defend each other against the bigots who throw things at them from outside from their cars, shoot them with frozen paintballs, and call them names and spit at them in the street. And they organized that tent city to also stand against austerity, against government cuts, which are the policy language of hatred. The hatred that people spit at people in the streets of Maple Ridge, it actually comes from this government. Because when they cut funding for housing, they're saying that it's too expensive to save people's lives from dying on the street. When they refuse to decriminalize drugs, they're saying it's too risky, it's too controversial to stop people from overdosing in the street. That's the language that vigilantes speak. They get that ideology from the state. They get it from the logic of capitalism. They get it from the logic of colonialism that holds property as more important than people. And this week, we won a minor victory against that because the judge said, no, homeless people's lives are part of what the public good has to register, and the city's private property over here is not as important as homeless people's lives. We know that the city of Maple Ridge is not able to go and get an injunction against Anita Place because they will also lose. Because people are made vulnerable to violence and death by this government's policies and by these bigots in the streets. Instead of that, they sent their bylaw officers to try to break up the camp with direct violence. Backed by the RCMP, they raided the camp a week after it started, stole the tents of anyone who wasn't sitting in them at the time they were there, ripped down the fence that we were using as protection against the vigilantes in order to make us vulnerable to their violence. They ripped down our tarps and stole our kitchens.
Shame! Shame!
And afterwards, we rebuilt. And now the camp is stronger than it was before Bylaw illegally attacked us without a court order and without order from council.
And you brought our stuff back!
And the most important thing is that for the first time, housed Maple Ridge residents who know the vigilantes, because it's a small town, people know each other's names, they know where their kids go to school. For the first time, people who are housed residents stood up against those bigots and said they wouldn't take it anymore. They organized a demonstration on Saturday against the city attack on the camp and in support of the homeless people in the camp and to call for housing and for people to not be displaced. I was there at that rally, and one of those bigots who celebrated on the front page of the Maple Ridge News drew his finger across his throat looking in the eye of one of the men who's housed in Maple Ridge. That man's afraid to come here today because he's worried about his wife and kids, because of the level of hatred and violence in the streets of that town that's just an hour away from here.
It's like that in Surrey some days too.
Yeah, sad.
So I want to call up the brave folks in Anita Place who are making this stand and who are the ones who are making it real, who are causing a political shift there in the Fraser Valley, and around whom we're going to see a real change, and including Kris, who's one of those housed residents who spoke out and who's taking a stand against these bigots and saying that we're not going to take it anymore. So please welcome up the folks from Anita Place.
All right.
All right, so some of them are going to speak, not everybody, and everybody there speaks very slow because people are still learning how to find their rally speaking voices. So let's be supportive.
Yeah.
Tracy's first.
Hi, my name's Tracy. I'm one of the founders of both tent cities. Went from Cliff Avenue to Anita Place. First, I'd just like to say we called it Anita Place for a reason. There was 4 women that started our tent city originally. One of them was found dead in a bin with a broken neck. She was a good friend of ours and a beautiful woman. Anyway, her mom, I phoned her up and said we wanted to name it in honor of her. So it's called Anita Place. But if you say it quick enough, it says, I need a place. So it worked out really good. She was very pleased. The bylaw. I'm going to talk about the bylaw issue and what they did to us. The day before they came in, we passed all inspection. We had one thing left to fix for fire. The bylaw officer there got in an argumentation with me, saying, well, you're housed. I got pissed off and I said, you know what? Yeah, I'm housed, but I'm not like you. I'm not better than. I don't go around kicking people in the head from outside their tent, slashing it, beating on them, and then acting like an angel when the police arrive. This is what they do to us out there. When they attacked us, they came up to people like the gentleman next to me. His name is Merle. He's 67 years old, born and raised in Maple Ridge, never left his handicap. And I asked him to leave his tent. He was on his way back with his meds. She said, oh, this tent? She started pouring it apart and threw it in the truck. The sad part is when he came back and they gave him his stuff, they let him get in the truck to get some more of his stuff out, and they were laughing. They thought it was funny. So it wasn't a pretty thing. I'm not going to keep it. I'm going to keep it short. I wanted to read the poem that I wrote for that rally. And the reason being is it'll tell you pretty much how we felt that day, and you know, it gets a point across of what they did to us. Okay. Okay. It's called Bullying Doesn't Stop Even When You Grow Up. We choose to continue a fight. We chose to do it because it's right. We can't treat others as trash, and we can't just throw them away. It's wrong, immoral, and unacceptable at the end of the day. The ones I speak of are city officials to you and me, showing their true colors for all to see. Personally, I see a vigilante. Destroying our property, picking on the less fortunate, and as well as the disabled, okay? They're dragging our food out into the rain and mud. This needs to be addressed and brought to the table. During this heinous attack, laughing with no remorse or compassion, it's so sad to see. We are the family of humanity, residents of this town, and we have the same equal rights as all of you, so we won't back down. Why would they storm in on us? For what good reason? Destroying our food, taking our tarps and tents, and leaving us wet and freezing. Where is their humanity? Where's the compassion for human life? In place of that, they take pleasure in causing harm and strife. How cruel and inhumane. How do they sleep at night? Maybe they thought we'd all run away? Wrong. Now we're very angry, and we're just going to put more of a fight. Sorry. We're not your homeless. We're the street population of Maple Ridge. We reside at Anita Place. We are the family of humanity, and we're in your face.
Next up is Stevie Ray. Hi from Maple Ridge. I'm Stevie Ray. And I saw some really lousy things there the other day with these bylaw officers. Carry away 3 people's belongings, one of which had their insulin in it. And another one, a young guy who just got a job, got a wallet, got his ID and everything together, and his work boots, only to see his driver. You know, they didn't have permission from their bosses or anything like that, and they laughed about it. I spent 6 years in Canada's Armed Forces, and I want to insist that everyone understands that we really do live in the greatest country in the world, bar none. That's why we really do, because that's why you guys won round 1 for our cause. Bless you all for that one. Countless cities like Spain, the Netherlands, do not jail people anymore for drugs, period. And property crime is down. Their ODs, deaths are way down. Sorry. And their rehabilitation numbers are high. Let alone the money they save from non-congested courtrooms. Coincidence? I don't think so. People, you guys did a huge thing for this cause, like winning this injunction. Let's stick with it, man, and let's get some money brought back home and spend on some good housing for all of us.
Good.
Dignity and respect.
My name's Linda, and I'm the other founder of Tent Cities. And this is a poem about everybody's an addict. And
I'm Joey from Maple Ridge too.
And I'm Eva from Maple Ridge as well.
Welcome.
Everyone's an addict of some kind, not wanting to admit it, playing deaf or blind. There's drinking and eating and shopping. Smoking money too.
There's gambling, sex, and religion, and there's coffee and weed, which most people do.
Some are addicted to street dope. Some are prescription drugs, you'll see. But they would never admit that to you or to me.
As humans, we are
creatures of habit.
Creatures of habit. So
when we want what we find the way and go and grab it. We all have addictions, no matter what they be. Drugs or candy, music or TV. It's all our personal drug to which we feed. We all point fingers at one another in blame, but in reality, it's we only cast the blame. To deflect our own shame. A drug is a drug, no matter what it may be. We use it to feel better, to cope,
to feel free. No one is better than anyone. We
all equal as humans, we just abuse differently. Take a look at yourself, and what do you see? What is your habit? Your drug, your crutch. What makes you feel free? Some like the thrill of the danger. Some like the pain. Seriously, take a look and ask yourself. The next time you put someone down, what do you have to gain? Yeah.
When we point the finger, there are 3 pointing back. So maybe, just maybe, it's understanding and heart to which we lack.
And by Tracy Scott.
Yeah, I went to that when they had that. What was it called?
Community meetings.
It was called the community meeting. It was to get us out of Maple Ridge. Yeah, it was really packed. There was lots of the vigilantes there. Tracy spoke very well, and we did a good job speaking against them for only like 3 or 4 people that went to this place, but we still got our point across, and I'm happy to fight with these people.
Good for you. Your stand is an inspiration too.
Okay, Eva.
Okay, well, hi, I'm Eva. And just so you know, I actually have been in both tent cities for Maple Ridge, Cliff Avenue, as well as Anita Place. And again, I need a place. I was housed for the 2 years in between. With the subsidy, everything was going well. I had my subsidy through Alliance Addictions. They helped me out and got me off the street, which was kind of cool. But with that came a bunch of rules. I wasn't supposed to have as many friends as I do. There's like 150 people in Tent City. I'm friends with all of them. I don't care. I have a big family. I grew up that way. I've always had an open door policy in my home. People make mistakes. You get a second chance. Everybody deserves that. So all of a sudden, just before this Tent City second one come about, they threw all my stuff out. They gave me a 24-hour notice. I lost my subsidy. I lost 3/4 of everything I own. Like, things, my disability forms in the last 6 months have been thrown out twice. Can everybody hear me? I pretty much have a megaphone voice anyway. But I definitely be leery on what you agree to. They basically have told me I signed away all my rights to Residential Tenancy Act. They illegally threw me out. My disability forms, my daughter passed away 23 years ago. I had one dress, one pretty dress. They threw it away. I don't have it anymore.
Oh.
Like, I don't understand how they feel every day going to sleep and thinking it's okay what they've done to people. Like, and that was the people that helped me get off the street. So be leery and try to pair up with your friends. Like, if you can, find a place with a couple people from that you trust, you know, instead of signing up for some subsidy. It takes 4 people, $3.50 a month.
City saves lives.
Stick with the people you know. But 4 people at $3.50, that's $1,400. You guys can afford it. Put $100 at most towards the, you know, your bills. $200 is your hydro and gas. There you go. You're good. I did that for 2 years before Tent City, like the first one. So it worked really well. And I found everybody at the caring place in Maple Ridge. They were all homeless, some of which, one was 30 years homeless. He was great at paying his rent. He was great. But thanks, guys, for inviting us down. I'd like to say, for sure, we appreciate it. The food was great. It was great. I had cake.
Okay, we have one more from Maple Ridge. Let's welcome up Kris.
I'm not quite as eloquent as they are, so I've written down what I'm going to say. I'm Kris Bosley, and I'm proud to stand with the residents of Anita Place, Tent City, and Maple Ridge.
Thank you, Kris.
In Maple Ridge, we have at least 2 Facebook groups dedicated to shaming and humiliating our street population, Protecting Maple Ridge and Concerned Citizens of Maple Ridge, standing up for a better community.
No.
A few of us have had enough of the intolerance and hatred perpetrated by these groups, and we have chosen to stand up in support of our street population, and in so doing have become targets of these groups ourselves. Our street population is a community within a community, and they look out for and care for each other. They have no choice. Our federal, provincial, and municipal governments have failed them miserably, and we are now faced with a homeless crisis of epic proportions. All levels of government must set aside partisan politics and address this issue without further delay. The demonization of people living on our streets, who may also be dealing with mental illness or substance abuse disorder, by a vocal minority in our community must end. It is absolutely unconscionable. And what sort of example are they setting for their children? Many say, we don't hate the homeless, we just want them to get the help they need. Well, why treat them with such contempt in the meantime? We must lift people up, not put them down. And if they fall, we must lift them up again. Our former MLAs, Doug Bing and Mark Dalton, were either unable or unwilling to address this issue when the provincial government offered us $15 million to build and operate a low-barrier shelter in our community. It is my belief that they were intimidated by some of their constituents. Just prior to the election, they offloaded their responsibility yet again by appointing a citizens committee, at least 3 members of which had publicly opposed a low-barrier shelter in Maple Ridge, and one of whom was the gentleman whose picture you saw on the front of that newspaper. I would ask Maple Ridge Mayor and Council and our MLAs denounce the recommendations of this committee and do the job they've been elected to do. We don't need any more committees. We don't need any more consultation. We needed a low-barrier shelter in Maple Ridge 2 years ago, and the need is even greater today, as evidenced by the formation of Anita Place Tent City. Why do we insist on creating places of refuge for people with barriers to access? All should be welcome at all times of the day and night, regardless of condition. If, in their infinite wisdom, our politicians insist on forming yet another committee, a person with lived experience must be included so the needs of the people for whom we are building the facility can be heard. Call me a bleeding heart if you will. I'll wear it like a badge of honor. A friend recently said, I'd rather have a bleeding heart than a dead heart. Me too, my friend. Me too.
Thank you. Good job.
Thank you, Kris, and I'm going to turn it back to Maria. But it's strange to go to Maple. If anyone here wants to come and visit Maple Ridge, we'd be glad to have people out there to support the camp. It's a morale boost to have supporters come out and stand with folks there, because sometimes people can feel isolated in this environment. But what's obvious in Maple Ridge is that a tent city fight is not just about the people who are living in that tent city. A couple weeks ago, in response to this tent city, Councillor Carrie Jang said, "It's all activists, there's no real homeless people there." Yeah. Yeah. And in Maple Ridge, they've said the same thing. They say that it's outside agitators who are making the Anita Place tent city. There's no real homeless people there. Now, this is, one, it's completely untrue. These spaces exist because homeless people need them. But also, underneath this idea is a horrible division that reinforces the idea that homeless people are not full human beings. Because homeless people in Anita Place and the homeless people here in this camp, they're activists who are homeless people. They say, I'm here to fight not only for myself, but for my community, and not only for my community today, but for the people who aren't homeless yet. They have a better sense of what the real politics are on the ground. The fact is that the people who are in their houses who hate homeless people in Maple Ridge, they're not just 2 paychecks away from the street. When they will talk to me, they tell me that they're planning their retirement to live out of their cars. That they have family on the street. That they themselves have had opiate addictions in the past. That they are closely related to the street, that they're on the edge of dire poverty. The MLAs have cynically redirected their rage about their economic insecurity to blaming homeless people. The opportunity at Maple Ridge, I think, is represented by Kris speaking out, denouncing poverty as a whole and not just poor people. It's that through these spaces, through this tent city here and through the tent city in Maple Ridge and the many others that are going to spring up across this province, we can find exceptions to the norm that buries homelessness and poverty, pretends that it's the fault of individuals and not a structural problem of capitalism and colonialism. And we can unearth that and use them as organizing spaces to take down these systems as a whole. Yeah. From the ground up. From the ground up, we rise. We don't rise by reaching down and pulling people up. We rise following the leadership of the folks who are leading these tent cities. They know better than anyone how corrupt and bankrupt this entire system is, how Canada is built on lies of freedom and mutuality, and we can rebuild a new world from these spaces.